I am Chris Thomas, and welcome to the Pressure Point Dojo here on Channel Fight. Anyone who knows me knows I'm kind of a freak for body mechanics, doing things precisely and correctly. And so I thought we'd spend this episode sort of focused on that, looking at some dynamics of body mechanics and the kinds of things that make for really good classical martial arts. And we're going to begin with the most basic thing, which is the first thing people learn, how to make a punch. So let's head into the master class. An issue that comes up in basic punching is the tendency to turn the palm too soon. And you can always tell if somebody does this because you see their elbow floating out. And so what starts to happen is instead of rotating the forearm in a punch, people rotate the shoulder. They're thinking, so if they were, see how my elbow is bent? If I rotate my shoulder, this is what happens. See this? Now this is a really horribly awkward, uncomfortable, bad position for your body. It puts a lot of stress on the rotator cuff. It disconnects your shoulder from the shoulder girdle, means that impacts will tend to be dissipating this direction, which if this arm locks ever and that kind of dissipating force, you could maybe dislocate your shoulder, so you don't want to do that. So the trick is to learn how to not turn until the end and to not turn the forearm, not rotate the shoulder. Now, there are a couple of different pieces to how we train that, but that's the thing you look for. So when I watch people, I look for what I call daylight. If I see that little bit of background in that space in the armpit, I know that they're punching wrong and turning wrong. And I also know the basic solutions, which are things like just wait, turn. Wait, turn. So when we punch, we rotate, and then we have this deviation thing. So you see how it goes like this, like this, like this. And so sometimes people get that wrong, and they start to do this, and then they hit and try to angle their fist this way, and you can see that that would pretty much wreck my wrist. Try hitting a makawara like that. And I know I hear the answer, well, you know, pressure points, you don't need that much power. But no, you're just punching wrong. See, the key to a pressure point, one of the very first lessons was torque the point. This is a form of what we refer to in Tuite as complex torque. Just think about a pressure point and give it complex torque. So if I hit and I twist, the minute I twist, I'm torquing the point. Then complex torque is to take a new direction. So I hit, I twist, and then I deviate down. The deviation doesn't occur until after you've hit, twisted, so you're already going into the body. So it's none of this kind of thing. It's like that. And you can see how his body moves back and then down, and that's what you want. You literally want the body to experience one direction and then another. This is the principle of Tuite, right? If I'm working a joint and I'm getting any kind of resistance at all I have to do is change direction. Just change direction. So it's the same thing. So I have a finger, I'm creating pressure, he's giving me resistance, so I rotate. I'm getting resistance, so I deviate. You see, do you understand? This is exactly the same. Punching, doing joint techniques, these principles are transferable. So when you study and you look at the principles of Tuite and you look at the principles of Kyushu Jitsu, they apply to each other. By the way, the particulars of that punch, that it's on an angle, it has this kind of flexion in the wrist, that's characteristic of one of the styles that I study called Ryukyu kempo. And many other styles will do what's called a full twist punch. So if that's your practice, the rules still apply. Make sure that you rotate the forearm and not up here in the shoulder. It'll just improve the quality of your technique. Punching is not just about the arm, it's actually about how the body moves. And it took me a long time, but I learned that the way the body moves is different than what we anticipate. You know, if somebody says, punch hard, you get a result that doesn't match what's actually best. So let's head back into the master class. When a punch is being thrown, there are typically a couple of different body movements that you'll often see. One of them is a kind of a whipping movement of the hip. Looks kind of like this. See? And what's going on at this moment is that the the movement of the hip right here is used to throw the punch out. But once the punch is in motion, the body retracts and locks into posture and stance. And the idea, the theory, is that you generate your force here, and then what you need to do is you need to create a stable structure so that the shock back upon impact is now backed up by something solid. That's the theory. It doesn't actually work that way. If I'm doing this motion of the hip, you know, whip hip, right, where I fire the hip and then go like this, what that will look like is this. See? So you can see my body. My hip whips out. I have this nice whipping motion, and then there's the impact. But you're not seeing much happening. By the way, in a tournament competition, the use of whip hip actually makes your punch snap. Because what tends to happen is, as you do this, your fist goes out, your body comes back and straightens out your arm, creating a satisfying sound in your gi, which judges love. But there's no power there. There's no expression of energy there. Now, the second theory, this is the one that I actually do, is the idea that at the moment of impact, you want your body moving into the target. So that actually means that instead of throwing my hip here at the beginning of the technique, I don't throw my hip till the end. I throw my hip at the end, which is where the power point is. Now, in other words, I just wait. I just want my body to correspond to the impact, not to be the start. It's not about creating a snappy technique. I've taught this for years. I mean, years, 30 years. And I would always get funny looks from people, like, that's not how I learned it. And then one day I got a phone call from some folks who were students of Kanazawa Sensei, the great Shotokan master. And they said, Kanazawa taught it the same way you did. And I guess that meant it was legitimate because, you know, it had the seal of approval from a Japanese master. But it's just physics. If your body is moving away at the point of contact, you're not going to get any penetration and no energy goes in. So you need to have your body moving in the direction of the punch at the moment of impact. And it's so much easier just to go. And so much more effective when the body just goes boom this way. When the body and the hand and the hip all together collide with the impacting surface, where there's no separation between those two.
So the kind of hip timing in relation to the punch that I've been talking about, where the body sort of waits until the fist is pretty much extended before moving, that works when you're executing a single punch. But if you're doing what's called renzuki, or continuous punching, you have to use a slightly different kind of mechanics. Fortunately, in the Isshin-ryu style, renzuki is a thing that we practice. And so let's head back into the master class and look at those mechanics.
Here's the mistake people make. Like that. You can't do that. The method must be this. Like a machine. So the incorrect way. The correct way.
Now, if your background is not classical martial arts or traditional martial arts, but something more like MMA, you probably have looked at and thought critically of the classical martial artists who are placing their hands here at their hips and punching from here. And so you've maybe asked that question, you know, why in the world do karate people punch from the hip? Well, the answer is because that's where our hand is. It's really a trick question. The real question is, why do we put our hand here? That's the kind of question that I answer in Masterclass with Chris Thomas.
Masterclass with Chris Thomas is an extensive library of in-depth video instruction covering Isshin-ryu karate, Ryukyu kempo, tai chi, Okinawan weapons, and so much more. It's a great value at $399 per year, but as a viewer of the Pressure Point Dojo, you can subscribe for only $119 per year. That's an amazing 60% discount. Just use the promo code DOJO when you subscribe. That's DOJO in all capital letters.
And when you subscribe, don't forget to use the promo code DOJO and get that incredible discount. And remember that there's a delay between the time you finish your subscription and I actually can activate your account, a thing which I do personally. But remember the email you get that says, "Welcome to Masterclass," that also is personal, coming right from me. Okay, let's move back into our practice for today. Isshin-ryu has a couple of techniques in it that seem odd or strange to people who don't know what they're about. In fact, some Isshin-ryu people have some pretty quirky ideas about what these moves are for. And one of these movements is called O-uchi, which means the big strike. Let's take a look at how you actually use it and head back into the master class.
This is for penetrating someone's guard. Their guard is up. So what I want to do is enter and press here. And now I have to give him a reason to react. There it is. That's the reason to react. And when he does this, this gives me the next technique. Boom, back of his head. Can't see that coming, totally blind. I enter his guard with the palm heel. I strike here, back of the head. See, you can see me reaching around, catching the gallbladder meridian. This point is called gallbladder 20. He's got his guard up. Enter here. This hand is floating. It's like this is intentional. Give him something to see it coming. As you come, bam, bam. One. He sees this. You know, it's like, hey, over here. That's the idea. You go boom, boom, bam. Now you'll notice you can do this in one of two ways. You come in here, throw this up this way. Then you can just ignore it. Let it come out blind. Because this is a relief to him to see this go away. He can't see this coming. That's one method. Second method, 1, 2, then hook and pull this hand down. Third method, 1, 2. Now watch the other hand, hook and pull. So from a very super basic version, the most basic version is going to be just here, 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 this way. So his guard is up. I go 1, enter. 2, check. 3, hit. By the way, don't let this wrap around and pull towards you. That'll pull his head into you and you might get headbutt. This is actually this direction. That's the direction of the force. How to find the point on the back of his head. You don't aim for it. Once you're here, if you just let your arm slide up, you'll get there. By the way, I've been hitting with the fist, but I don't have to. I can also hit this way. Use my forearm to strike with and just hit with the forearm. That works too.
In the traditional martial arts, there's a movement that shows up a lot like this. It's sometimes called augmented block in English. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It just doesn't. I mean, it's fine as a sort of ready position, but it doesn't make sense as technique until you approach it from a classical point of view. And then a really interesting thing happens. You discover that not only is it incredibly useful, but you can use it in different ways. And the different ways of using it work with different ways of performing it, and in particular, different ways of moving the body as you perform it, a kind of different set of timings. To me, it's a really fascinating relationship between application on the one hand and performance on the other. And so we're going to look at the technique, augmented block, only using its actual name, morote uke, which literally means to receive with both hands. So let's go into the master class.
There's several different ways to do it, so I'm going to just kind of show you each one. They each have their own specific application. The first motion is just 2 circles. The circles are identical circles, so it's this way. 1, 2. And this has got what we call positive motion. So 1, 2. 1, 2. With the stepping motion, it would look like this. See it? So you see that the body, as I get to the half step position, I'm actually overstepping so my body rotates. 1, 2. Okay, so that's the two-hand version. So the idea is opponent is attacking and you go, oh, this way. So that hits are double hits. You punch and strike up here and you hammer down on the arm to knock that away. So it's typically against some kind of straight thrust or stab, and it's two-hand strike. All right, so then the next one I refer to it as a 2-count or a double count, 2-beat. And a 2-beat's pretty easy. So 2-beat looks like this. The lead hand strikes down this way, and then it stays right there. So it hits out and stays, and you enter, and it just stays right physically in the same space, and you enter into it, and then you strike with the other hand. So from the front, it's 1, 2. So you see how these have these kind of downward feelings, both of them pounding down. So application, the opponent is guarded, and what you're doing is you hit the arm. Typically you would go after large intestine 10, this way, bang, and see how that drives his arm down towards center line, and I come in, I'm controlling this lead leg, and I hit here. And this hit down, typically across stomach 5 like that, with a kind of raking motion, so you end up in the low position, but you're hitting down on the way. You notice how I'm controlling the arm and the leg in this movement. The next one is 3 beats, and so that begins in its initial motion. You're here. It looks like almost like you're doing a reverse punch, but instead of punching, this hand strikes. So it's this way: 1, and then you step halfway through. You strike with this hand 2, and then you finish the strike 3 this way: 1, 2, 3. So from in front, that looks like 1, 2, 3. So the middle beat, the first beat is driven by the hip rotation. The last beat is driven by the hip rotation. The middle beat is driven predominantly by the movement of the body. Boom. So the first 2 and the last are heavy. The middle one is the softer. So it's yang. You might think of it as yang, yin, yang, hard, soft, hard. They're all pretty hard. He's in the guard, and I come across this way. So this is very intentional, because what this does is that knocks that arm into center. The second beat doubles up on that, and then look at the position I'm in. Boom, there's the hit, or I can just go here into the forearm. So that's the 3 beat, and then you'll see this. The last one is a little more complicated, and it looks like what I'm doing is middle counter. So this is middle counter, right? So I do what looks like middle counter, but then this hand is going to hammer, and then this hand strikes. So it has a beginning very much like middle counter, but then it does this. I go 1, see, this is the set position for middle counter, 1, 2, 3. Now here's what that is in application. What I'm doing here is that initial motion that I'm getting ready to do my middle counter, this piece right here. I want to engage this hand here, and at the same time strike, then hit, then hit. The first hit, this is, I'm aiming for the heart meridian, either heart 2 or heart 3. Heart 2 is above the elbow, heart 3 is just below the elbow. Well, either one, depending on how long his arm is, or whether he's trying to hit me or just is in a guard. If he's punching, I'm probably going to get heart 2. If he's guarded up, I'll probably get heart 3. Then you saw that physical reaction. He rolls and hands me large intestine, so that's fire melts metal. And now as soon as that comes down, stomach 5 always comes forward, stomach 5, that's the diurnal cycle, so I just step in, bang, finish with that. So those are the main set of what we call morote. I want to thank you so much for joining me today on this episode 12 of the Pressure Point Dojo here on Channel Fight. And I hope you'll join me again for our season finale. Until then, I'm Chris Thomas. Thanks for watching. Now go train.